Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to be doing another bonus video today for Pride Month. This time we're going to be looking at a highly requested band from the community post where I asked what kind of LGBTQ artists or bands we should be checking out. And Liturgy, I'm not really sure where the emphasis is in that word. They came up quite a few times. So we're going to check out a song called God of Love from them. And I thought it was interesting down here in the description. It says the composer, lyricist, and songwriter are all the same person. This Hunter Hunt Hendricks, also the channel uploader. So, yeah, pretty interested to see where this goes. Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about the other day. Beautiful swells into notes. We get these really nice crescendos. We get these nice decrescendos out of notes. And we've already played around with volume a lot. Yeah, just gorgeous emotive writing so far. It's really interesting to have those bells placed inside of all of this harsh chaos. That was interesting. Yeah, really interesting juxtaposition there. Very harsh transition into this. We also moved from a 4 pulse to a 3 pulse. Really going for sort of timeless feel right here. No really emphasized downbeats. This is an interesting song on variation. I'm going to get into that during the analysis, but it takes a special kind of song to put me in a place where I don't speak much during it. Sometimes that's because I'm overwhelmed with the song or maybe enthralled by it. Maybe it's doing some really cool things that I'm just absolutely loving and I don't want to interrupt it. Other times, songs are just doing such unexpected things that I have no words to explain what I'm feeling. This song falls in the latter. Man. So the song is Chaos Incarnate. It's just all over the place. It's wild. We have a gorgeous opener. I think it was 2 or 3 piece string setup and really gorgeous writing. We had some really nice note relationships between the instruments and their melody lines. We had this beautiful dynamic work of crescendos and decrescendos to uh, sort of give these swells, these really big swells and fade outs, and it was beautiful. I loved it. And then it took all of a couple of seconds to just flip on a dime and go into whatever that was. Um, I'm not sure what style of metal that is. I've heard it before. We've done some bands like it, but it is 100% filling space with attacks. We have guitars tremolo picking. We have constant, very similar. And what I mean by similar is that the attacks of, well, okay, so let me back that up a little bit. We got the tremolo picking. On the drums, we have constant attacks on several of the instruments, the snare, the bass kick, cymbals, and they're all identical. We don't really have any hits that are more exaggerated than another. We don't have flams or rim shots or cross sticking or hitting the bell on the cymbal. They're hitting the same exact part of the instrument, creating a very repetitive droning in the drum kit. We have um, just this wall of sound created by repetitive, similar attacks in the instruments, coupled with the wailing of the vocalists. There's definitely a sort of there's pain in this song. At least I felt it, especially in the vocal work. Some of that happens to be the way that they are physically compressing their voice, but there's also a lot of clipping and compression and distortion effects added on top of it in post. It sounds like, to me at least, that give it even more distortion, more distance between a traditional voice, what we would associate a normal voice to sound like. Um, and there doesn't seem to be any strong rhythmic element to the vocals either. It is chaotic. I think that is just the perfect word for this song. I'm probably going to say it a few times. But it is extremely chaotic of a sound. Uh, Not just in the delivery, but the way that it's packaged into the mix. It doesn't really stand out on its own. It's hard to really decipher syllables. And to me, it just sounds like wailing, wailing of pain, being in agony and screaming about this agony and having in the surrounding environment, just the atmospheric sounds of wherever you are drowning out your pain. And that's kind of what this song feels like to me is being in pain and no one knowing because no one can hear you because your surroundings are just so loud. They're overpowering you. Um, but the song also deals a lot with contrast and juxtaposition. We see a sharp juxtaposition at the beginning of the track when we move from that beautiful classical section to the first proper metal area. And then we also see that when we move into the smoother, calmer section. There is a lot of beauty in there, but there's also still a lot of darkness and pain. But we do shift the wailing vocals down to vocalized oohs and ahs, and we introduce what I think is some of the most interesting stuff is bells. I'm not sure what kind of bells they are. A couple of times we have hanging chimes. I heard a couple hanging chime runs, just like, dragging your fingers across some hanging chimes. But there's also a clear bell sound, maybe a xylophone or a glockenspiel, definitely something of hit blocks, pitched blocks. So Yeah, that's an interesting sound to put in here, and to me, it's typically used as to put a little edge of beauty into it. It's just not as harsh of a sound, and from what I heard, it tends to be using more beautiful melodic patterns, stuff that fits the opening classical section, rather than some of the harsher, more dissonant chord progressions and melody lines that are utilized in the guitars. Um, so it's really this constant clashing between the harshness of the metal section and the pain introduced there, and some of the odd bits of beauty showcased throughout the rest of the song. Um, More interesting though is variation. I mentioned this during the song, and I want to bring it up now. There is a ton of variation in the song when we look at how the composition is structured and where those structures come from. So if we see the intro of the song, the classical section, as an anomaly, just push it out of the way, it doesn't return at all. To me, it seems to be more of a false start to provide a little bit of safety or a feeling of safety before getting into the harsh elements. Uh, but it doesn't get presented again, so it's an anomaly. It's a fringe part of the song. We're going to ignore it for a moment to focus on the aspects of iteration. So we start out with the metal section, then we move into the calmer, softer section, and then we do a bunch of jumping around back and forth. Now, what's interesting is that the metal section is in 4 to my ears. There's not a lot of accented areas in it, so I'm really basing that 4 off of when the guitar changes notes. They tend to feel like they fit inside of 4-beat bars, and after 4 or 8 or sometimes even 16 bars, beat 1, if we're counting in 4, is where the guitar is going to change their note. However, when we get into the softer section, that's in 3. Now, what's interesting is that eventually we get to a point where we're bouncing back and forth between these two rapidly, and somewhere in there, we start seeing the uh, the metal section with the tremolo picking done in 3, and the softer section done in, I don't know. It sounds like possibly 3-3-2, which is 8, which means that it could be written in 4, which means that we've switched the 3 and the 4. However, it might also just be easier to write it 3-3-2. It kind of loses some of the symmetry of the inverting, but I think it would be easier to write that way to understand the pulsation of it. Because if you wrote in 4, visually it doesn't look like how you would play it. It feels like it's a group of 3, a group of 3, and a group of 2. I think. I had a really hard time really nailing that down, because whenever we actually got into it, we also left it real quick. And that's another thing, is that the frequency between switching between the metal and the soft sections speeds up over the course of the song. We start exploring each section pretty lengthily, and then the oscillations get quicker and quicker until it feels like we're changing them every other bar. So there's a lot of really interesting ideas in there. Um, I wish I knew what the lyrics were, because I have this idea, this thematic idea of the metal sections being pain and the calmer sections being a bit of release from the pain. And what the story I'm getting here is that the longer this person exists, the less frequently and the shorter their moments of relief are, and how quickly it reverts back to this desolate pain of no one being able to hear you, no one being able to help you because they don't know you're in pain. Your environment is drowning out your screams for help. But without having the lyrics, that's just what I'm getting from the music, and I could be way off. But yeah, this is interesting. definitely not my cup of tea. This is not something I'm going to be listening to on my own. The uh, the style of music just I would really like to get to a point where I'm like, okay, I could listen to this in my free time. Even if it's not my preferred type of music, I could turn this on in a specific mood. But it just goes against a lot of what I enjoy in music and what I have enjoyed in music in the past. My musical tastes have definitely changed, as with everybody, over time, but still the concept of melody and clean engineering, clean mixes, they've stuck with me for a long time. I don't know if I'm ever going to lose those preferences in music. And this style of music just goes against everything that I really enjoy about compositions that really speak to me. So I dig it on an artistic level. There's definitely things that you can emotions and atmospheres that you can explore with this type of music that would be quite difficult in any other. I think the repetition of attacks and just the overall assault of the auditory senses is very unique to this style of music. It's just really hard for me to get into. But those are my thoughts on Liturgy's God of Love. This is where you guys come in. Now, hit me up with your comments if you enjoyed this or not. If you know the lyrics, maybe you understand the purpose of the song, the artist intention. You can let me know how close I am, or how far I am with my hypothesis there. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's a Linktree link in there for everything you need associated to the channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with next week's favorite live performances week. The Patreons let me know some of their favorite live performances, and they voted on which ones would show up this week. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're gonna see how that goes. I'm usually more of a studio person, but as you guys know, over the past year or so, I've kind of been gravitating to live. Um, just because seeing the instruments is nice. So I think the good middle point for me is actually studio plus like a music video or something which shows they're playing. But I'm kind of getting pulled over to that live side. I've watched some really well done, some really well engineered live videos this past year and a half or so, and yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys have really enjoyed as your favorite live performances. All right, well, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.